Right now, for us across multiple regions worldwide, thousands of servers are processing millions of customer interactions. Some companies use a complex array of tools to monitor this. Others, I'm told, just cross their fingers and hope. At Cyara, we found a better way, and that's why I'm excited to share our observability journey with you today. I'm Brendon Ghumman. I head cloud engineering at Cyara. My department comprises specialized teams across DevOps, infrastructure engineering, SRE, and telecom domains that work collaboratively to support our technology ecosystem. Together, we are responsible for ensuring the reliability of our global SaaS platforms, maintaining 24/7 operational support, implementing AI capabilities, and upholding rigorous compliance and security standards. You see now the most familiar slide from today. Please take note, scan the QR code, and have your questions ready for me at the end. Need to get better at my clicking game. Let's start by looking at what we'll cover today. I'll walk you through our journey from why we needed to evolve our observability approach through our evaluation of Grafana to the impressive results we've achieved. But before we dive into the observability transformation, let me give you a quick snapshot of the scale that we're operating at. As a global leader in CX testing and monitoring, we support Fortune 500 companies across multiple regions, handling billions of customer interactions through our cloud-native architecture. This scale brings unique challenges, which brings us to why we needed to transform our observability. Our journey to Grafana began at a critical juncture. Our previous monitoring solutions contract was up for renewal, triggering a comprehensive market evaluation. The renewal provided the perfect opportunity to reassess our observability needs and explore more innovative options. What started as a routine contract review transformed into a strategic shift that ultimately led us to Grafana. Why Grafana, you ask? The strategic advantage? Well, as you can see, there's a lot that comes out of the box with Grafana. It's interconnected with other systems within Grafana. There's cost efficiency, of course. Grafana for us came in at a 30% lower cost than what our previous vendor was and provided a whole lot more options to us. It wasn't just about ingesting logs into Grafana. We could also plug in multiple data sources. And I'll give you some real-world examples later on how that helped us. The alerting system's amazing, and it's all nice centralized. Instead of alerting coming from different places for us, it's now coming just from Grafana. Access control, we can give specific permissions to specific groups within the organization. So some have more access, some have less access, some can only read the information in Grafana, others can read and act on it. And I've also got a real-world example on how API integration helped us to innovate and succeed. So before we dive in, a quick recap of the challenges we were facing. We have complex systems that are distributed across the globe. We have multiple product lines that are growing organically, and we're also increasing the number of product lines through acquisitions. We need to be able to monitor these in real time with real-time insights, not just insights that we can look at, but insights that we can also action. And by actionable insights, I don't mean someone has to do something. Sometimes an actionable insight is we don't have to do anything. The information is with us. We look at it and go, yes, this is great. Nothing needs to be done. Cost optimization is important. We started off on a really good footing by having Grafana come in at 30% cheaper for us. But then we also use Grafana to optimize other costs on our infrastructure. Last but not least, we were good with incident management. With implementing Grafana, we've become amazing. So what were the key achievements for us? Like I've mentioned before, incident response became much better. Alerting is all centralized in one place. We get lots of reports out of the box from Grafana. Again, I'll show you some examples. Monitoring, of course, but compliance is a big one for me. I'm sure there's people in this room that work for companies that service customers on a global scale. And these days, these customers are asking for their data to stay within those regions. whether it's data generated in your platform or it's log data or metadata. They will not extend their contract with you, or new customers will not sign on with you unless you can prove to them that even your telemetry data is staying within region for them. And that came to us from Grafana out of the box. All right, I'm going to dig into some real-world examples now. This is a beautiful picture for me. It is my favorite picture right now. Well, I'd say fourth favorite because my wife and kids occupy the first 3 spots. This is my fourth favorite picture. My own profile picture would be after this. Why do I love this picture? That one on the top, I don't know, laser pointer, yeah, that one on the top. I don't know how easy it is to read from back in the room, but I'll give you a readout of it. This is, I came into our Grafana system at a very opportune time to make screenshots for this presentation. And I was looking at our system integration testing just before a release. So it looks like someone was doing a heavy load test to make sure that whatever changes were made in this sprint didn't negatively impact our system's ability to perform under load. In sort of a 15-minute window, I can see about 11 million logs being generated. And out of those 11 million logs, there's only 11 error logs there. That's pretty much nothing. But what that tells me is our system stood up to scale under such heavy load. Also, Grafana didn't crash under that kind of load. It kept up, and it gave us some good insights into how our system was performing. Another reason why I love this picture is I didn't have to create it. I didn't have to do anything. All I did was go into Grafana, click on Explore, pick the category I wanted to explore, and there it is. I can, as you can see, I can star it, I can add it to dashboard, or I can dig deeper by clicking into Show Logs. When I captured the previous picture, I thought I was impressed. When I looked at this, I was super impressed. So now my profile picture is now down to number 6, not even number 5. What this is telling me again is, okay, we had about 11 million logs come in a 15-minute time window, but now I can see even deeper into what that service was made up of. So in a real-world example, let's say this was a payment service. If we look at the second row, first column, we'll see host name. This service is made up of 89 hosts. So this is a really huge load test that we were running. All of this performed well, and from what I can see, I can now come in and pick filters and say, okay, I want to slice and dice by such and such. Say this was an investigation into something that wasn't working properly. The engineer that was investigating this could just pick on the errors filter, pick any other filters they wanted to, and then click on the share button and send it to other people within their team. So no longer having to say, hey, you know, I went in to Grafana, looked at these logs, and I clicked on these other things and whatnot. No. Someone's going and investigating something, they click on the filters they need to, and they just click on share. And the collaboration from that point becomes very easy. All right. Alerting, again, was pretty important for us. What we see here is pretty much run-of-the-mill alerting out of the box. We've got categories and we've got different rules set up. So that to me is the sort of the run-of-the-mill boring part. But what's exciting to me about this is something that I didn't realize when we were setting this up. As we onboarded new people and they started looking at this, this became live documentation for them to understand what the critical hotspots in our systems are. Instead of having to keep Confluence up to date with things, the alerting panel shows us what the critical hotspots for us are. They also then, these alerting rules start off conversations amongst new starters and their teams and say, hey, look, I was onboarded a month ago and I was told that these pieces in the system are critical. I see that we are alerting on 3 of the pieces, but not the 4th one. Why do you think that is? So it helps generate natural conversations instead of forced conversations with new starters. So I'm really impressed with that. Is a benefit that came to us that we didn't realize would be when we set up the alerting dashboard. I also wanted to share with you guys a story about innovation. So the backstory here is before we were with Grafana, we had a service that requires lots of heavy compute, and under load, we need to spin up more of these machines. Before we were with Grafana, we were using the traditional approach of scaling up using CPU or memory metrics. What we found with that approach is, okay, it served the customer well, but from our side, we were either scaling up too early, meaning extra cost for us, or if we left it too late in the piece, then some of the results for some of the customers under load were delayed. They were still getting the results, but delayed. So once we started playing with Grafana during the POC stage as we were evaluating it, we found that we were putting the average queue time from this service into the logs. It was extremely easy with the Grafana UI to extrapolate the average queue time being written by multiple services, sum that over a period of time, take an average, and then have an AWS Lambda call the Grafana API to keep polling it at regular intervals to say, hey, is the average queue time below a certain threshold? If it is, do nothing. Even if CPU and memory metrics go close to 100%, the service is still performing well. We don't need to scale up new instances. But if the average queue time goes up, then the Lambda spins up more instances, and as the load comes down, the Lambda is still polling the Grafana API. Once the average queue time comes down, the instances are scaled back down. So hence, helping us innovate and succeed. I spoke about cost optimization before, and yes, Grafana, I'm saying it again, came in at 30% cheaper. I'm sure Jim will be happy that I keep saying this again and again. But it also helped us to reduce our AWS footprint. So we had, how did we do this? We got real-time monitoring out of the box. Based on that, we were able to intelligently right-size. I mentioned earlier that we run a global footprint across multiple regions. Prior to Grafana, we were running the same sort of template across multiple regions. We had different number of instances, but the templates were exactly the same. With real-time monitoring and intelligent insights through multi-metric analysis, we could say region 1 runs this template. Region 2 and region 3 before were also running the same template, but now we could say, for example, if region 1's running with 16 gigs and 4 cores, we know that the load in region 2 and region 3 doesn't really even go up to 50% of region 1, so we can bring it down to 8 gigs and 2 cores, for example. So how did we achieve that? Through another beautiful picture. Now, you may look at this picture and say, what's beautiful about this? It's all too much for me to ascertain from it. Yes, when you first come into it, there's a lot to look at here because we're dealing with thousands of servers. But the way we've named our servers, we can sort this by name. We know that certain servers, the way they're named, they back certain use cases. So we can filter out the servers that we don't need. And for example, we know that payment services are made up of these 6 servers. We'll only select those ones, and then we can see what sort of memory they're using under load, what's the CPU usage under load, disk usage, and network bandwidth, right? And then we can go and right-size that across different regions. We know when a system's under load through other logs. We can pick a time period, like you see at the top there, the last 2 days. We can pick a specific time range down to even the hour, or pick a larger range. And that's what helped us right-size. Another key thing here was we looked at our disk usage. Previously, we were seeing sort of maximum utility up to 60%. We were able to drop disk usage across the globe and save a fair bit of money that way as well. The next thing to this was, when looking at a specific instance, we could dive even deeper into these kinds of metrics. And again, these came out of the box. Nothing had to be done from our side to get these kinds of metrics. This one's showing that CPU usage is pretty low, but at a quick glance, you can see that this is a memory-intensive compute. But say this was a CPU-intensive compute, what I like about this one, sorry, wrong button. Say CPU was high at 50 or 60%. Generally in AWS, what you get to see is, okay, you get 50, 60, 70% CPU usage, but it's very hard to get the breakdown of what makes up that 50% CPU usage. Grafana out of the box will tell you these are the top contributors to your CPU, and when your CPU reads 50%, 30% of it was made up by whatever that was. So it gives you further detailed insights into how your application is performing, what you can do to make it better. The last example I want to put in front of you is some financial intelligence work that we were able to do. So this is still a work in progress. What we have is a system where as customers consume credits on our platform, if they breach certain thresholds, an alert email goes out to the account management team, and they go and have proactive conversations with the customer to understand if that was what they were intending or if something was misconfigured, and sort of get in touch with the customer before the customer comes to us with the bill short complaint. Again, all of that's good and it's working, but it's not coming from a centralized place. It's emails, and sometimes emails get lost, they go into junk. There's no way to see whether a threshold was passed or not unless you go and talk to the DBA to get him to run special reports and whatnot. With this, we get a visual view, and not just the technical teams, but the non-technical customer-facing teams get a visual view as well as to what's running close to red hot from a customer point of view. Where do we need to go and reach out proactively instead of waiting for the customer to come to us? Just on that same concept, this is coming from a database. We've been able to work with our InfoSec teams to say, this kind of information in Grafana is really useful to us. Let's sit down and work together with some of the most common queries we get from customers and align on what values we can push to Grafana that doesn't have any PII, PHI, PCI, or any other customer-sensitive data, but can help customer-facing teams to run a quick query and answer questions for the customer. So again, Grafana has become this centralized place for us, not just in a technology domain, but also in helping serve our customers better. And yeah, so ultimately, our journey to Grafana has not been just about monitoring. It's also adding business value for us. We get lots of reports out of the box. We can create other reports and put automation on them. We can set alerts on them and whatnot. We have unified visibility across all of our platforms, across the globe, across our existing product lines, across product lines that we acquire as well. There's proactive detection of issues like we've never been able to do before. There's so much data for us that our planning is now based on data. We're making data-driven planning decisions now. There's cross-team collaboration, as I mentioned before. When new people are onboarded, they look at the alerts that are set up, and that sparks some conversations that we've never seen sparked before. There's enhanced availability for all users, and last but not least, we've been able to have some amazing cost savings because of this. And that's where I'd like to conclude by thanking the Grafana team for helping us to bring business value, not just observability, but also business value, and helping us to do more of innovation and be more successful in our business. Thank you.
Good job.